Okay, we can proceed, Chairperson. I have a quorum in the house. Thank you.
Can you help us with the roll call?
Certainly, Chairperson. Currently, I have yourself, Chairperson, Honorable Binko Gigaba. I have Honorable Aduans, Honorable Morwa Setla. I have Honorable Alexie. I have Honorable Nodada. I have Honorable Dr. Tembekwayo. And I have Honorable Dr. Boshoff. And I have one apology for Honorable Sukevs, who cannot join us this evening. If you would allow me to give you the apologies from the side of the department chair, I have an apology from the Minister and Deputy Minister. DG is still on leave, so he won't be joining us. The Deputy DG, Dr. Whittle, won't be with us, but the delegation will be led by Mr. van der Westhuizen. Chairperson, that's the roll call. I will put down the agenda shortly. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Brown, Honorable Mashabelo is not available.
Thank you, Dr. Tembekwayo. The apology is noted.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Tembekwayo, as well for that. Probably, I think it's proper that one must start by apologizing for the fact that we had to hip hop the time of this meeting. When we planned a program for this particular quarter, we had to planned it at the end of the first quarter. We knew that there will be a process of budgets, but we didn't know the dates. So we changed now because there were many plenaries and we had to find available slots. So we first started to check on Friday, and then Friday was, many members were not available. So we had then to opt for this time, which we think probably even for the next weeks, because for the next 2 weeks, we will embark on many plenaries process. So we thought that probably using 6 o'clock then will be fine, and then we stick at least to our Tuesdays, so that we are able to be part of many plenaries, but also we proceed with the work of the portfolio committee. Now on the agenda today, we are having the Department of Basic Education. They are going to present to us the ASIDI SAFE programs, but we're also having Kagiso Trust, which is going to brief us on their role, the functions and responsibilities. So because we are meeting Kagiso Trust for the first time, and not all of us understand what they are doing and who they are, let me welcome you. I think the chair and the CFO are part of, and the CEO are part of the meeting. Let me welcome you and ask you to probably introduce yourselves first. And if you can, I understand we are having load shedding in some parts of the country. If you can, we would love to see your faces. So, Chair, can we start with you, and then we allow other people as well to introduce themselves. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm
firstly apologizing on behalf of my chair. I think the diary and the changes was not able to permit her to be part of this meeting. But let me first say good afternoon to the Honorable Chair and to the Honorable members. I think we are really humbled actually to be part of this meeting and to actually experience the work that our public representatives are doing and actually even extending working to this late hour. So I think that sets the tone very, very high. And thank you for receiving us. So just for introduction, so our chairperson, Memankoni Ntsaba, as I was expressing, could not be with us and this evening, but I'm here leading a team, and my name is Mankodi Muize as the CEO of Kagiso Trust. And I am going to request my colleagues without any waste of time so that we can just show our cameras and let our face be seen. And then let me start with the COO and then we'll go to the rest. Over to you, COO.
Thank you, CEO, and greetings to the chair of the Basic Education Portfolio Committee. Humbled by the invitation. I'm Themba Mola, COO of Kagiso Trust. I will be taking you through the presentation that we shared with the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening to the committee members. I am Sizakele Mpatswe. I'm the head of education programs in Kagiso Trust. Thank you.
Za?
Good evening to the portfolio committee. My name is Zandile Matakane, and another surname is Makutwa because I'm married with the Makutwas, and I'm the education program manager at Kagiso Trust head office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. More, and then Zanele.
Good evening, honorable members. I'm sorry I cannot connect the video. My name is Mojaji Siabi, the head of Research Program Management Office and Strategy. Thank you so much.
Okay. And the last one joining us, I think you're here, Zanele. Oh, yes, please do.
Yes, thank you, and good evening to the chair and members of the committee. I'm Zanele Mabaso, and I'm the head of policy at Kagiso Trust.
Okay.
Thanks, CEO.
Thank you, ma'am. Honorable Chair, so that's the team KT that is joining the meeting this evening. Thank you, honorable members. Over to you.
Thank you very much, CEO. I'm not sure if it's you then that would lead the presentation. Let's hand over to you then.
Thank you so much. Yes, Mr. Mola, our COO, will be leading that. Themba, can you then project and then take us through the presentation? And we hopefully that would like to be concise, but share as much as possible, and at the same time allow for engagement, Chair, if you would allow us to do so. Over to you, Themba. Are you able to share?
Yes, thank you very much. As mentioned, I will be sharing the presentation. I hope I'm able to load it. Maybe Zanele, if you can, if you are there, can you assist in loading the presentation?
Okay. I will
you.
just maybe request Mr. Brown to make me co-host so that I can flight it on my end.
Yeah.
I'm doing that right now, Zanele, my co-host. I've made you a co-host, yeah.
Okay. One moment.
If you are having challenges, I can try and do it from my side. I'll just need you to tell me when to skip the slides. Let me try it from my side.
Please do from your side so that we don't waste.
Okay, yes, please do.
Yeah.
Seems to not be allowing me it.
Yeah, right. If you can put it on presentation mode. Yes, thank you very much. I think to the chairperson of the Basic Education Portfolio Committee and to the members of the committee, as mentioned, we are humbled by the invitation to participate in this meeting. We will be sharing with you the program we are implementing as Kagiso Trust and giving you just a glimpse on who we are. And this is just going to be a very short presentation. If you can move to the next slide. We have shared with the committee the PowerPoint presentation, but we've also shared with the committee the attachments which are meant to give you a glimpse into reports that we have compiled as an institution and research that we have conducted around the sector. So I'm just going to take you through the presentation. The content is going to look at our history briefly, program overview, education program framework, the operation in the Free State and the Sekhukhune East scaling, which is in Limpopo, and some of the recommendations that we thought we can make with yourself. Next slide, please. Kagiso Trust, as some of the committee members might know, we have been around as a leading development agency. We have an aspiration as an organization to really deal with overcoming poverty. Members of the committee will appreciate that you cannot deal with overcoming poverty if you don't bring in the other two aspects, which is dealing with inequality and dealing with unemployment. And I think our programs do respond to the three challenges that we face as a country. We have invested over 2 billion rands across the programs. And I should mention that this is continuing. Recently, we have just, after the devastation in KZN of the floods, contributed a 2 million rand. And the members of the Basic Committee portfolio will appreciate that 1 million of that contribution is going to go into education. I mean, that's how really strong we feel about the business of education. The next slide. As mentioned, we've been around for several years, 1984 to be exact, when we were established. We were established as a civil society entity alongside the SACC, the South African Council of Churches, and the Bishops' Council. These were the three entities that were benefiting from the European Union funding. At the time, our mandate was to deal with the victims of apartheid, and we worked very compassionately with the communities at that particular time. And around 1994, in anticipation of the bilateral and multilateral relations with the new government, we then established an investment company because we always felt that we have a role to play as an organization. So as we speak to you this evening, we have investments that are supporting our development work, and these were established through the wisdom of our trustees, whom I will introduce shortly. We are quite involved in education, starting actually even preceding 2011. Some of the people that we come across as we run our daily lives are aware of the Kagiso Bursary Fund that supported tertiary education back in the years. And we have two aspects that we are implementing as an organization. Education in particular, and capacity building in general. So capacity building will involve a lot of elements. From 2017, we have started to focus on specific programs, education, I'll speak to that, socio-economic development and institutional support. I'll also explain that next slide. We are led by a board of very credible members of society, if I might suggest. These are people who have worked as senior directors in government. You might recognize some of the faces. I'm not even going to mention those faces. But we're also led by a board of academics and professionals, CAs. We're also led by a board of business practitioners who are running their own business successfully. And this has enabled us over the years to have a credible a record in terms of transparency, in terms of how we run our business as Kagiso Trust. And this is owed to these trustees. Some of them are founding trustees. That means they were there when we were establishing the Kagiso Trust, but some of them came on board later on. You might recognize some of the faces, but this is our board that is responsible for our operations. Next slide. As mentioned, we decided to really identify strategic pillars that we should support. Top of the list in our support is education. And the members of the portfolio committee would know that we are supporting education, in particular public schooling, because of the challenges that public education faces in terms of poor performance. But also most important is the fact that a lot of communities send their children to the public schooling system. There are very few people who can afford private education. And we felt that we should participate in education in the public schooling because our intention is really to provide a competitive opportunity for many of the communities that are caught up in that space with its challenges, both historical and which we're dealing with. We are also involved in the socio-economic development space. This is in the entrepreneurship space. And deliberately, we looked for those sectors that are not accessed by the majority of communities. And we support that particular space. We wouldn't do this if we did not have the financial sustainability pillar. The financial sustainability pillar, as I mentioned, that back in 1994, we established investments that are supporting our development business. And this is the financial sustainability business, which financial sustainability pillar that looks at how we can sustain our investments so that we can invest. And I'll talk to this aspect later on because as an organization, we have partnered with the Department of Basic Education to implement our programs in education. We have a capacity building pillar, which is looking at civil society participation. Members of the committee would recall that even during the COVID-19, even now that we still have the pandemic with us, civil society entities have participated as an extension of government. And we feel that it's important to enhance the capability of civil society. So this is where we are coming in. Unfortunately, we have an extensive experience as an NGO, and we believe that programs focused in building the capability of the civil society organizations is quite important, but maybe this is not the discussion for today. The next slide. So the business of this evening in terms of the basic education portfolio committees is education. And let us mention that we are dealing with education in terms of appreciating the challenges of the pipeline. So we look at education broadly and seeing to what extent can we deal with those challenges that the pipeline faces. And there are several challenges. Some of the challenges is really at the entry level, at the ECD level. We have programs that are responding to that. And we then also deal with the foundation and intermediary and high school program. And I'll talk a little bit about exactly what do we do, but also looking at the career path opportunities for the learners that go into education. Obviously, the public schooling environment has the challenges that we have mentioned there. I mean, grade 6 not able to write simple sentences or to do basic arithmetic. This is the story that the committee should be aware of. The grade 9 lacking knowledge of basic formats, periodic tables, and simple fractions. I suppose we should also be aware of that. The issue of school dropouts, it is mentioned in the mainstream media, 50% of the learners that do not get to complete grade 12. The challenges of progress learners, whom we think it was a noble decision by the Department of Basic Education to retain them within the system and provide them opportunities, second and third opportunity for them to write their matric. And there are pleasant experiences of these progress learners who, some of them could have been exited from the system, but they were retained. And we are working on programs that are meant to deal with the pipeline. So if you can appreciate our programs, we start from ECD, we go into the mainstream schooling, we also go into the exit opportunities. We have a program called Eric Mulobi Scholarship Program that takes our students into tertiary institutions to make sure that our students always have opportunities to look at what is their options available if they've got to deal with their own livelihoods. The next slide. We do this thing through a program called a whole district school development program. Now, the members of the committee will appreciate that this is borrowed from the whole school evaluation framework, which looks at the functionality of a schooling system. We identified specific elements of the whole school development framework, which we think does make public schooling to become functional. So we have what is called transformation and empowerment workshops. These are workshops that we run, which are SAFE accredited, by the way. I think it's important to mention that. these are engagements with respective schools. One of the problems of public schooling is how people has a tendency of blaming one another. You know, it's not my responsibility, it's the principals, or it is the parents. So we get all the stakeholders sit in the transformation and empowerment workshop and really begin to say, how do we take responsibility as a collective? We do curriculum support.
Recording in progress.
I'll talk to that in my presentation. We also deal with the leadership development. We also deal with infrastructure, resourcing, social support, community mobilization, and learner exit opportunities. So it's a comprehensive program. So from the whole school evaluation framework, we identified these elements because we think that these are what makes learner performance to improve. And we have tested this over several years. Let's go to the next slide. As I was saying, retreats are an empowerment and transformation workshop. They are SAFE accredited. It's a facilitated conversation among school stakeholders, parents, principal. We take each school at a time, and we have these very difficult conversations. How should we make our school functional? Where have we gone wrong? How can we take collective responsibility? Now, these retreats, we also are able to facilitate them at the district level. We also recently took them to the province level where the MEC and his officials sit. Same questions applies. How as a province have we failed? How can we take collective responsibility? And this is a self-reflection, is a deep diving conversation, is a retreat where out of it comes commitment statements. So commitment statements are individuals saying, henceforth, this is what I'm going to do as a member of the institution, the school, the institution, the district, the institution, the province. We also have a program that deals with instructional leadership. Instructional leadership, because if we have to create a learning conducive environment for learners who are passing through the system, we need to be saying, who are the people that are remaining in the system for several years? These are the systems leaders. These are the district officials. This is the principal. This is the SMT. And we call them systems leaders, and we try and engage them on what does it mean to deal with curriculum coverage. And as the committee might be aware, the role of the district officials is normally to monitor implementation. And we've been grappling with the issue of support. What does support entail? How can we help them have tools, capabilities to help them support the system more than insisting that the system should be in compliance? We deal with teacher development, dealing with curriculum gaps. This is driven through the mentorship. These are former systems operators. We also recognize the role of lead teachers. These are people who are in the system, but maybe the system is not adequately using them to deal with dysfunctionalities within the system. And we also deal with lead teachers helping the novice teachers. These are newly qualified teachers coming into the system, overwhelmed by the challenges of the system, and how can we make them to be comfortable. And then we deal with with infrastructure, basic infrastructure to ensure human decency, provision of water, provision of toilets, provision of classrooms that are conducive for learning, but also incentive infrastructure, which we have made it to be a competitive process. So schools who are participating in our program would compete to receive a computer lab or a coding lab. So this we don't give them willy-nilly. We say to them, unless we improve your performance, we will then give you incentive infrastructure. And it has worked because it has created competition among the schools that participate in the program. I should mention that how we deal with the programs that participate in our program is not a one-year program. It's 5 years minimum. And this is where we think that's what the program makes a difference, because we work patiently with the systems leaders to embed a systemic change. And because we have the budget, the resources, we are able to stay with the system for that long. Next slide. Next slide. Maybe the slides have freezed for whatever reason.
My apologies. I'm just trying to reload it. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I'm also having a bit of connectivity
Yes.
problems on my side. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, we thought we should share with the committee this information. Now, this information, I should mention to the committee that we worked in Thabo Mofokeng in the Free State for 7 years. We worked in the Free State in Motheo and Fezile also for 7 years. So these are statistics that are not achieved within a year. So, but it is working with the schools over time that has enabled us to achieve these. Let me make you a practical example. When we went to Botshabelo and Fezile, we were saying, what is it that is making the public schooling to be dysfunctional? And we realized that it is not just the academics which is important, but it's also the socio-economic challenges. Our students cannot see. So we started a program called Eyesight Tests, and we conducted eyesight tests. We donated spectacles, but these were not just donations to students. These were donations made with the participation of the parents, because can you imagine some of our students in public schools get embarrassed to wear spectacles, even if they might not be able to see. So how can we make them to gain the confidence of wearing those spectacles? We worked with the parents. So our program is comprehensive to the extent that it works with the systems leaders, it works with the learners in terms of leadership training, it works with the parents. When the Minister of Basic Education announced the grade R getting institutionalized at primary schools, we started a grade R program. And as we speak, and I would invite the members of the committee to visit the Free State, Fezile and Motheo to go and see how we have created a grade R facility. Remember, primary schools did not have this infrastructure. So we've established the grade R facility within primary schools, which is conducive for combining learning and playing, so that we don't take our children from ECD and suddenly put them into a primary school environment, and we don't appreciate that we need to make them to transit into the foundation phase properly. Next slide, please. Probably the same challenge. Well, the next slide is talking about the Sekhukhune, because I think as an education program, we have also extended the program into Sekhukhune as part of the scaling scaling up of the program. And we've moved I think the members of the portfolio committee. Oh yes, I mean this was just to demonstrate to you how we have taken the performance in the Free State from where they were in Thabo Mofutshanyana and also in Fezile Dabi, and made sure that there is a significant improvement. And this is not something that happened over 1 year. It happened over several years. Now, I am proudly to say to the committee that Thabo Mofutshanyana intervention was in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. That was when we were working with Thabo Mofutshanyana. And Thabo Mofutshanyana is on an autopilot. It has been consistently performing. What does that mean? It means the systems leaders that remains in the system are able to sustain the performance of the program beyond our intervention. What does that mean? That means we work with the province officials for political support. We work with the HOD for administrative support. So this is just a program that does not tailor, that does not parachute into the program. It works with the people who are officials in the system to make sure that when we exit, the capability is left. And I think that's what makes the difference of this particular program. Next slide. If you look at Moteo, we thought we should distinguish this one as a case study. Now, we went into Moteo and worked with Tabanchu and Bochabelo. Now, members of the portfolio committee might appreciate that Bochabelo is almost like a township. So our solution, much as we are rural biased, but it does work also in townships. And we implemented this program. We ran the retreat with the district officials. Moteo was performing was the last district in terms of performance at Metric. We are proud to say this year, the Moteo district was declared as the #1 best performing district in the country in respect of the primary school learning outcomes support by the Minister of Basic Education in April 2022. That's not all. The Moteo district additionally produced the best physics teacher and the best learner outcome at the National Awards program. Next slide. This is still on the performance of, okay, maybe I just missed that. But I think Moteo is the best performing district in the Free State and the second best performing district in the country. We've been there for 7 years. So what does it mean? What it means, which we want to share with the committee this evening, is that if we have to work with the education system, you need to have a broader, bigger vision on how you want to make the change that we want to see. So we are in the Free State, we are now in the Sekhukhune in terms of scaling up the program, working in Sekhukhune. You will notice, members, that we choose poor performing districts, those that are experiencing challenges, and we work with them. But all we need is time so that we can deal with their challenges. I might be diverting, but I should mention this point. It's quite important. When the pandemic happened, a lot of public schooling stopped, literally. So it meant there were no learners who were going to school, but who did not access education. So as we speak to you this evening, we are doing a proof of concept in Sekhukhune, which is a satellite Wi-Fi driven by an international organization. Because part of our program and our solution is to say, how do we make public schooling when there is a pandemic not to stop? And that means access to Wi-Fi. But we have also went further in KZN, in an area called Patch Ports Shepston. We are partnering with another entity that is looking at TV-wide space, which is also another internet which is provided cheaply, which we are implementing as an entity. So one of our issue really is to say, how do we deal with access to Wi-Fi? So in Skukune, we're using the satellite solution. In KZN, we're using the TV-wide space spectrum, which has proven to be cheap. And I think we can engage further on that one, because that's what we want to see is public schooling accessing. Private schools and Model C schools did not stop their classes. They proceeded, but our classes stopped. And we think that we should really work in partnership. Now, we learned that some of these established Wi-Fi providers, whether, and I must be careful here, not to be just throwing names around, but your mainstream providers of Wi-Fi, they use the same infrastructure that they use in towns to provide in rural areas. And that is not necessarily the solution. So these proof of concept that we are embarking upon are looking outside those main towers of these mainstream providers. And we found that they work out cheaper and they are compatible to the rural area environment, even in terms of electricity access. The TV-wide spaces do provide that opportunity. Next slide. Now, what we are seeking with this presentation is to say to the portfolio committee, the district whole school development model works. And we are aware that there are provinces that are experiencing challenges in terms of improving the quality of public schooling. And we think we are better placed to begin to provide this solution nationally in all the provinces, and therefore seeking the minister to endorse the model and the portfolio committee to endorse the model, because I think we can engage with you on what is our basis to think that it works. It does work. It does need us to resolve the issues of partnership and collaboration. Next slide. And the model adoption and replication is defined through what we are saying, that the model is systemic, is sustainable, it deals with the pipeline, and it is sustainable because it leaves the capability within the system. So the learners, as they pass through the system, they're assisted by that, and it improves the quality of results, as we have demonstrated, and it deals with disrupting the generational poverty and creating conditions for secure and sustainable livelihoods of young people. I mean, everybody knows that the young people are the future. It deals with ensuring that the school as a community deals with the social cohesion, building good citizenship, community-based accountability. It deals with 21st century learner capabilities that we are confronted with. I mean, the minister has mentioned, the Minister of Basic Education has mentioned the pilot of the 4IR. We are already involved in that, so we think we have the capability to deal with that. The model is within the context of the community in terms of takes the village to raise a child, and and it's because it moves from the classroom into community mobilization. We work with the communities. I mean, it is important to mention to the committee members that most of our infrastructure that we put in schools have remained in schools without them getting stolen, because we mobilize communities. And this is what a collective responsibility means to us. Next slide. Now, at the level of the policy, because of, as an organization, we have lived through the experience of implementing the program, and we think that we can participate in the following areas: the development of a national protocol on provision of quality psychosocial support for teachers. We think we can become part of that dispensation. The development of a national guideline to increase school-based professional development, including professional learning communities. We have explored this in Thabo Mofokeng in the Free State, and it works. The finalization of the framework on online schools. We think we can become part of that solution. The revision and amendment of the care and support of teaching and learning conceptual framework. The national plan on strengthening foundation development process as part of the reference group to be established. I spoke about the Great R case studies that you as the committee can go and witness. Next slide. Kagiso has a capability to assist the department with the three-stream model. As we speak, we are partnering with the Sasol Foundation, converting schools in the Sekhukhune area into technical schools, finishing them, working with the mines so that they can be fully finished. And this is providing exit opportunities for learners at grade 9 to then begin to say, do I follow an academic stream or a technical school stream? We have that capability and are currently implementing it. I already spoke about the Great R framework that we have provided in the Free State, and we are inviting the committee to go and have a look on what is the type of infrastructure that must be established at primary school, so that the Great R is understood by the primary schooling. And having worked with the Department of Basic Education in Limpopo, we've partnered through with the Education Trust. In the Free State, there were challenges in terms of the PFMA. And our point is that we come to the department, we come to the portfolio committee, not cap in hand. We have our own money that we're willing to invest. And we think the portfolio committee should explore with us what are the modalities that are legal, because as we speak, the PFMA does not accommodate as an instance where as an NGO, you come in with your own money and you want to partner with government. There are always issues around the PFMA. So we're saying, committee, can you investigate the modalities that can be used to create that partnership where a civil society organization comes in and partner with you to resolve the challenges around education excellence, challenges with adherence to learner progression and admission policy. This one, we came across it in Limpopo. I mean, believe it or not, portfolio committee, there are 24-year-olds who are still in school doing matric or grade 12. We understand that they cannot be thrown away, but we think that there must be a different dispensation, maybe the community colleges that must be introduced in Limpopo to deal with this particular issue. Next slide. Thank you very much. A pleasure to present to the committee. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, I think let's allow the department to present as well on the infrastructure. Does Afande say something?
Good evening, Chair.
Did you see in the meeting?
No, I think there was an apology offered for the acting DG, Chair.
Oh, okay, all right. No, it's fine. Let's allow you to proceed then, Dr. Afande. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The Secretariat is welcome to flight. So good evening to all the honourable members, and good evening also to the delegates from Kagiso and the colleagues from the department. Thank you, Llewellyn. You can go to slideshow. So we will quickly run through what was achieved on ASIDI and SAFE, and there was a specific request to give a bit of a broader view of where we started and where we are at the moment. So next slide. Thank you. So on ASIDI, just for background, ASIDI is just an acronym for the Accelerated School Infrastructure Delivery Initiative. It was launched in about 2011, and the idea was at that time that there are specific critical backlogs identified that had to be addressed. So the focus was on 4 specific sub-programs, which was the replacement of schools made entirely of inappropriate materials. There are many other schools that are partially made of inappropriate. They've got one plunkies classroom or a mud structure somewhere, but here the focus was on schools made entirely. There was also a focus on schools that had no water supply, schools with no toilets, and schools with no power. So through engagement with the provinces, these specific schools were identified, and that became the scope of work for ASIDI. And the idea was that if we can eradicate that, we've really made a huge contribution to upgrading the level of infrastructure at the schools. The funding source that was created was called the School Infrastructure Backlog Grant. It was basically a bit of a top slice from the education infrastructure grant in the provinces. It was ring-fenced. It was then allocated to the National Department of Basic Education, and we were tasked to run the ASIDI program. Treasury has recently announced that from their side, they would like to phase out the infrastructure backlog grant. So by the end of the current financial year, which takes us to March 2023, they would like to conclude on all the work funded through the school infrastructure backlog grant. So that should be then the end of ASIDI in its current format. If we look at the overall progress, the number of schools identified is indicated there as the need. So for instance, inappropriate structures. We have 332 schools on the program, of which 302 has already been completed to practical completion, leaving us with 30. So that 30 becomes the scope of work on ASIDI for this year. Similarly, there's 48 water projects and 15 sanitation projects that we need to conclude in this financial year. If we look at SAFE, it's got a bit of a different focus. SAFE, an acronym for Sanitation Appropriate for Education. So while ASIDI was focused on the sort of the basic backlogs where there's nothing which is appropriate, SAFE went up one level to say we have schools that do have toilets, but there are some of these schools that are dependent on basic pit toilets. They've got nothing else. They've got no appropriate toilet, and appropriate was defined in the regulations as at least a ventilated improved pit latrine. So these schools were dependent on basic pit, and it also followed after some tragic incidents with some kids. So similar funding source, schools infrastructure backlog grant, and the similar story that the SAFE must be wrapped up by the end of this financial year, and the remaining scope on the program must be completed. So if we then look onto the next slide, please. So the overall progress on SAFE, if we look on the third column, the need there, currently 3,494 schools on this program. 1,945 has already reached practical completion, and that leaves us with 1,549 schools. That is then the scope of work for this financial year. You can see the various implementing agents involved in that. So stay on this one, that's one, it's fine. Next one, just give a bit of a look and feel for some of the schools. obviously can't show all the schools. We've built close to 300 new schools. It's just a bit of look and feel on the type of toilets that were constructed. So if we then on part B, just focus on the planned work for ASIDI and SAFE for this financial year. As I said, everything that is remaining on SAFE and everything at ASIDI is the scope of work for this year. The Division of Revenue Act has an allocation on the school's backlog grant for the current financial year of about 2.4 billion. That is split into three components: compensation of employees, goods and services, and then capital. If we look at the next one, we then unpack the scope of work for ASIDI. I've indicated those numbers of the 30 inappropriate structures, 48 water supply, and 15 sanitation, just an indication where are they. On inappropriate structures, those 30 schools are all in the Eastern Cape. On water supply, there are 9 schools in the Eastern Cape and then 15 in Limpopo. And then on sanitation, we've got 48 and 5. And Chair, I just want to apologize. I think the numbers got us slightly mixed up there. On the next slide, please. Then on ASIDI, just the same breakdown, again, per implementing agent, just indicating the status of those projects. You can see in the red block there, some of all the schools are currently in various stages of construction. There's only 13 schools, which is in tender stage with the IDT. The rest all in construction. Then on SAFE, the breakdown of those schools there, we indicate that the DBSA is responsible for 295 of these schools in this financial year. National Education Collaboration Trust, 292 projects. Mavula Trust, 450 projects, and Kuga, 80 projects, again indicating the status of those projects. In this case, we've got still 980 projects in planning and design that we must push through the system to practical completion before the end of the year. Next one, please. Thank you. So if we just give a breakdown of these ones, of where they are located on the DBSA, 100 of those in the Eastern Cape and 195 in KZN. For Collaboration Trust, majority of the schools in the Eastern Cape, very few in KZN. And even for Mvula, the majority of the schools in the Eastern Cape, with a substantial number in Limpopo. On the next one, please. If we then just quickly recap on what we've achieved last year, we have now concluded all the books. And so on ASIDI inappropriate structures, we had a target of 21. We achieved 22. Those are complete new schools. On ASIDI water supply, we had a target of 100. We achieved 112. And then on sanitation, we had a combined target of 1,000 schools. And the actual achievement was 1,019. If we then look at the utilization of the grant in terms of the expenditure, in terms of the school's infrastructure backlog grant, we utilized the full grant as close as you can get to 99.99% of it. And then similarly on the provincial grant, next one. On the other conditional grants, in the middle of that table, there's the education infrastructure grant, which is then allocated through to the provinces. And we are reporting here also what happened to those grants, and we had 100% expenditure on all those grants. The CFO, Mr. Kuno, is in the meeting. If there's any specific issues or questions about the funding, he can assist us. And Mr. Mafoko is also in the meeting to assist us on any questions about the provincial programs. There are specific challenges that we would like to bring to the attention of the committee. We are really trying to make progress on infrastructure and getting all of this to a higher standard. So something like the floods in KZN is really heartbreaking. And at the moment, we are working with the provincial department. They are in charge of the program in the province. And we have assisted them to prepare an implementation plan and a cost model. And at the moment, we're talking about 630 schools there. There's a costing of around about 400 to 500 million related or associated with that. It is, some of them are difficult to do the full assessment. There are some of the schools they're still battling to get access to. And we've established a task team from the national department to assist the provincial department, and it goes wider than infrastructure. We've got damaged infrastructure, but there's also workbooks and furniture that just got washed away. There are administrative records that's gone. So there's a much broader approach to addressing this challenge. On the next one, overcrowding has become an extremely prominent challenge. We noticed that there is a migration of learners from rural settings to urban settings, but we also pick up a migration of learners from better performing schools, from poor performing schools to better performing schools. So you find in a specific area that there are schools that are overcrowded, and then within a few kilometers from there, there are schools that are underutilized. So what we've done so far is we've prepared what we call a capital investment plan, which is basically a massive spreadsheet with 23,000 lines for every school. And for every school, based on the learner numbers, we calculated the number of classrooms required just based on the norm as public in the regulations, basically 1 to 40. And then compare that with the actual number of classrooms at that school to see whether there's a backlog. Now, this is the minimum backlog. Obviously, the people from education tell me that if you run a school, you don't run all schools by 40 learners per classroom, depending on how the subjects and the grouping of the classrooms. So we are working then with the provinces to make sure that in their capital programs, they address the issues that are clearly the prioritized needs. There's another initiative that we just like to share. It is the acronym of SIPOS, the Special Intervention on the Overcrowding in School, where the aim is to work through school governing bodies who then engage community-based contractors and suppliers to assist with the building of some of these classrooms. This was piloted in some of the provinces with huge success. So we are investigating possibilities of using that as one of the mechanisms. On the next one, please. Maintenance remains a huge challenge. There are many schools in poor conditions, some simply through neglect and a lack of maintenance over years. But then also issues like flood damage, issues like vandalism is also causing havoc at schools. So what happened in the last year is that the Education Infrastructure Grant, which is the bulk funding mechanism for school infrastructure countrywide, the framework, the grant framework has been amended to call for 60% of that grant to be allocated to maintenance. Now, this is a very bold move, and many provinces are really battling to achieve that because they've got committed capital projects. Now, they need to apply for deviation from that. So we are really pushing to get this maintenance up to speed. We have received the infrastructure plans of all the provinces for the new financial year, and we are currently reviewing those plans to see that they're complying with the 60%. If not, they need to motivate deviation, and we also make sure that they are spending the money on the real needs as per the capital investment model that we developed. Next one, please. Deals with the reliability of planning data. We have had many incidents where there were surprises, and I call it a surprise because it's always a bad surprise. If you think you're making progress, you will find something in the news about the school that's in a very poor condition, and then you find that that school wasn't even part of the list. So we are working very hard towards one version of the truth. I cannot have my list, your list, these lists, the provincial list, the national list. We need to come with one thing there. Now, in terms of systems, the National Department developed some years ago what is called NIMS, the National Education Infrastructure Management System, which is basically a huge database of all the schools, all the infrastructure components of the schools, indicating the condition assessments. Unfortunately, through years, the updating of this program or of this system has not been up to standard. Some provinces did an excellent job and some provinces are really battling. So it means that some of that information is a bit outdated. We also have a system called EFMS, which is the Education Facility Management System, which is basically a project management or program management system. And we are currently working towards consolidating these two systems into one national system that we roll out throughout the country and use that as the basic starting point for all planning on infrastructure projects. We've mentioned about the capital investment plan that quantifies the need for schools, have a cost model on it, and is based on the norms and standards. So as an interim solution, that's what we're using until we can get the other systems going. We are in discussions with Treasury to obtain funding. And like we mentioned, we are reviewing the provincial implementation plans to ensure that they are spending the money on the real needs and then also putting enough money into the maintenance component. Thank you, Chair. That's the end of our presentation.
Thank you so much, Doc. Members, those are the two presentations from the trust, which is of course an NGO, not necessarily accounting to us, but I thought that we just need that information, you know, for our own communities of the work that they are doing. There is a hand of the principal, and then there is a hand of Dr. Tambekwayo, and then there is a hand of Nodada, and then there is a hand of Boshoff. So I'm going to allow those hands in that order. I believe that when we ask questions, if we've got questions for both the trust and the department, we'll ask them, but of course mentioning for what, so that both the trust and the department can note them, as and when they respond, they also assist in that regard. I understand there is load shedding, so other people might be experiencing some network challenges, but those that can proceed, we will advise that they do so. Principal, you can start.
Beloved Chairperson, thank you very much for this opportunity. Yeah, you can say that again, that we are operating under borrowed ropes, because at any given time the load shedding can strike. Chairperson, whilst living this all-important time, let us say we welcome and appreciate the two presentations from both Kagiso Trust and DBE. They are very helpful in the job at our disposal. Maybe the first question, I think this is directed to DBE, because you see, can the department kindly update this portfolio committee on the progress made in the implementation of mitigations on challenges regarding school infrastructure, as outlined in slides 22 to 25. Now, the first question regarding on DBE. The second question maybe on DBE, it's research has proven beyond any reasonable doubt that incentivizing teachers has a positive impact on the overall teacher performance, and thereby improving learning outcomes. Now, my question, Chairperson, is what other incentives, if incentivizing educators is working, what other incentives can the department provide to enhance more and tangible learning outcomes? One question, which I think this one is directed to Kagiso Trust. I think Kagiso Trust, thank you very much for coming into the picture as a civil society organization. The Kagiso Trust has visibly made a significant impact in supporting the Department of Education. Of course, with Free State as the most notable province as we speak. We have heard they are talking about a number of schools in the Northwest, some schools in the Northwest, and also in Limpopo, in Skukuni. But they have come very handy when we talk about the Free State. Now my question, Mudula Studo, Iri, what further and systematic interventions could be required to make significant impact on addressing the leakages in the system as outlined in slide number 7. Maybe let me stop there, Mudula Studio, to give other people a chance. That is the name of democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for both presentations made. I would start with Kagiso Trust. And the first question is based on the introduction that was made by the presenter on Kagiso Trust overcoming poverty. And on those slides that were continued, to ask them to say, how can you extend your overcoming of poverty to other schools in other provinces? Is it possible for you to do that? And when and what will your guiding principles be in the choice of the suitable schools in provinces? Yes, I acknowledge the fact that at the end of the presentation, a question was posed to help you so that the national can recognize you. But I have got a question at the end, which I will ask. And then the second question is based on the fact that during the presentation, a mention was made that between 2011 and 2016, the main focus was on the 5 provinces at the further education and training FET level. My question is, which are those 5 lucky provinces that you were focusing on, and the FET colleges, and what was your contributions in this regard? Question 3 is just based on the composition of your board. I see here there are 9 board members. Out of the 9 board members, disappointingly, there are only 3 women and 6 are men. And when you change the board, please look at balancing the gender 50-50. We go for 50-50 nowadays. So please look at that. And I would recommend that it be definitely be done so that you balance the gender in the composition of the board members. The following questions: how do you support? You said you are also involved in the approach to education. How do you support the approach to education in the development models What I mean is, what is your contribution directly towards the curriculum design with specific reference to basic education? A further question is based on, there was mention of workshops on transformation and empowerment, including the retreats that you held with the parents, principals on the district levels, and then you are going to extend it to provincial level, including the instructional leadership, that the courses that you do. But you never mentioned here the national transformation course, because they also need to be trained on how to go on transforming their thinking ability, the paradigm shift as time changes. Even the leadership at national level needs to change the way they think. It should not be business as usual, business as always, as it is happening within the Department of Basic Education. Will you be able to design some courses specifically for the DBE leadership, executive leadership, on the issues of transformation? If not, why? If yes, when will you be able to do that? Will you also be able to share with us that guideline of the transformation, if you are willing to do that? Surprisingly, there are only 2 provinces that are mentioned here. The Free State that are benefiting from all these things, including the Sekhukhune. Why only 2 provinces? Why did you choose the Free State and Limpopo? And what about the other 7 provinces that are not mentioned here? Because I feel that they also need to enjoy all those beautiful things, like, for an example, the access to Wi-Fi and the intervention on the connectivity, as connectivity has posed major problems in schools, specifically with schools that are in rural and rural areas in provinces that are not mentioned here. So what about the 7 provinces, and how will they be included into the whole situation? And lastly, the question is posed to us to say we should support you so that the national or the DBE can be able to adopt your model. If you want to, if you are saying this, do you need to be funded by the DBE? If you want to be funded by the DBE, my answer would be DBE is overloaded now. It cannot take any other extra new models that needs to be funded by them, unless if you come with your monies, no problem. I think we'll appreciate if you come with your billions and you move into province and do what you did with the Free State and the Sekhukhune. In connection with the DBE, what would your recommendation be? Say, for an example, what should happen to the schools which were built, say, for an example, in 2011, but because of the quality of challenges that they have, they already look very old. I mean, right now you tell us to say from 2011, 3,000 schools have been, infrastructure has been changed and the toilets. But the period between 2011 until now, it's more than 10 years. So the result could be that the very same improvement that you made to the infrastructure is already looking very, very old. So what would your maintenance plan be in this regard? Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Mbekwayo. No, Dada?
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to check if I'm audible before I continue.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good evening to everybody, and thanks for the presentations from Kagiso Trust and the department. It's a pity that we don't have the political leadership in the meeting, Chair, because I would have wanted to start the meeting by them giving us clarity as to whether there is any discussion around the science and the medical expert advice regarding keeping mask wearing in schools. But we'll then obviously leave that question for them to get back to us, maybe in writing. And if there is, they must give us what the Ministerial Advisory Committee has indicated regarding that. And it would have been good to have the Minister's remarks on that, as usual, when she does her political overview. But just to go into the presentations that have been given today, it's just to appreciate the Kagiso Trust and the work that I've been doing over the past 30 years. And to just basically welcome that there's some form of collaboration that has been taking.
Dada, we are missing you. Or is it me?
I don't hear him either.
You don't hear him as well?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I think we have lost him.
No, the problem is with Nodad, not with you, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Can we allow you, Boshoff, to proceed in the meantime? We'll check if he's back when you're done.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'll gladly do so. Now, I would like to really welcome both of these representations because they were very informative and to the point. And I think what is important about Kagiso Trust is that it is one of a whole army of NGOs which existed or which were founded during the 80s to bring about a new political dispensation, but they are one of the very few that really survived and continues to play a vital role in the same direction of what was meant at the beginning. And if I listen correctly, it can really, probably be ascribed to the fact that they have a very clear sense of direction and good management, and that they present their help where needed, but without be prescriptive and without being prescribed. Also, following what they think by themselves. The whole assistance which is given at schools is, to my mind, exactly what is needed, a long-term commitment. And it is like, it's one of those tensions. If you give a little bit of assistance to a whole lot of schools or whatever institutions, then you can have a very wide footprint, but not a very deep one. And I think the choice towards a deep footprint with a smaller number of institutions is definitely a better one. And I think the results that they conveyed to us confirm that. And I think that one should not ask, why don't they do more? I'm not saying anybody asked that, but it's a possible question. One could say that if they demonstrate their success like this, and it is welcomed and embraced by the Department of, provincial departments of education and the National Department of Basic Education, it could be a good motivation for other institutions who maybe have similar abilities to do that. And I think that the involvement of communities into public schools is actually fundamental to the current school system. And where communities are, the school community itself is a little bit more wealthy. That is institutionalized in the school governing body, appointing teachers, organizing these kinds of retreats, all kinds of different things, team building programs, whatever, the guys in the HR management can think of, and give a new name to it every now and then. But we have NGOs like this involving themselves with schools where less wealth prevails. It is difficult because it is not institutionalized in any clear way. Of course, the parents can have a major role and a vital role, but these things that actually cost money and has to be afforded by somebody, that falls away in poor communities, and that is where the likes of Kagiso Trust comes in. If I understood it correctly, maybe they should correct me if I got it wrong. And that brings me to the point that I want to go over to the Department of Basic Education, but that I would like to say, if we are revising the whole Schools Act of 1996 with the Bella Bill, this is another one of those modalities in education which I have mentioned before. One of those which are not represented, or which does not show in the new education bill. And that is part of the reason why we really think that this outdated bill should go back to the drawing board. And amongst many other things which had been mentioned at other opportunities, that also the possible role of NGOs as real stakeholders in education in community schools afforded by the state, that it could be institutionalized. To the Department of Basic Education and Mr. or Dr. van der Westhuizen, I'm not exactly sure. I would like to ask, or first I would say that I think while it's understandable that these two programs, ASIDI and the SAFE programs, that they draw to an end, as implementation is actually a provincial function, but that the national department has to get involved where things go wrong, or where some kind of specific action is needed, identified and needed. And therefore, I would like to know, are these two programs replaced by something? The role which was played or had been played until now, does it go back to the provinces, or does the department, the national department, are they reviving it in another form, maybe with another name or something like that? Because while it is actually very nice to recognize the success, we all know that it's not the end of the road, that all the schools that are left are not in a tip-top condition. So there's a whole program should go somewhere. I just want to know, where does it go? Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
No, thank you very much. Notata, are you back?
I'm back, Chair. I didn't realize that my network cut.
Okay.
Cool. I don't know where it stops, Chair. If you can maybe, or must I just start from scratch?
Yeah, I think Rabba do that. Start from scratch.
Yeah. No, I was basically saying in the beginning, Chair, that it would be nice to have the political leadership here, in the minister and the deputy minister, so that they can just give us clarity regarding what has been, being questioned to us via emails and all sorts of communication regarding the mask wearing in schools, and whether there's scientific and medical advice that has been given by the Ministerial Advisory Committee regarding this, and what do we do moving forward. But obviously we'll leave that for another day. But I was saying that, it's thanks for the presentations from all the colleagues. And to just basically say to the Kagiso Trust that thanks for the work that they've been doing over the past 30 years. And it's good that there's some sense of collaboration that is going on now with the Department of Basic Education. But I wanted to check with them, one, if there is a signed memorandum of understanding on the collaboration that is taking place. I think colleagues have raised quite a few things regarding, the expansion to other provinces and noting that the Free State has benefited in the past and so on. So if there is a memorandum of understanding for the collaboration that is taking place between DBE, and what does that look like? And secondly, in terms of the expertise that the trust is bringing, what do they have they identified in DBE that might be lacking, or that DBE might not be able to provide, that they think they've got expertise to kind of supplement or support what is already existing, or bring in new expertise? And then lastly, Chair, is around funding. Obviously, there's been an indication that over 2 billion has been spent over the past 30 years. How is that funding solicited, and are there mechanisms to audit that particular funding, and what does that look like, considering that there's going to be this type of collaboration that is taking place? And obviously the work that is being done, I think, is commendable. I think the DBE and the sector in its entirety can benefit from it. But, we've got these questions because, as Honorable Boshoff raised just previously now, that we come across NGOs across the board that want to contribute, make meaningful contributions in provincial departments of education to either build schools, mechanisms to support the curriculum, especially in disadvantaged areas, to do the very same thing that the Kagiso Trust is trying to do of alleviating poverty through education. So, and I think it's a valid point to raise that it's time that maybe that is looked at in terms of legislation, but, that's a discussion that we can take forward. Then, in terms of DBE and the presentation around infrastructure, I think it's safe to say that this is one of the biggest challenges in the sector, and the floods in KZN have not made it any easier for us to be able to deal with this particular challenge that we already have. But I just wanted to check with the department in terms of what the president has announced in his SONA speech this year of a new purpose vehicle being used as a mechanism to try and alleviate or get rid of inappropriate structures such as mud, dilapidators, asbestos, plank, as well as pit toilets. And I posed the question to the Director General in our previous meeting, and he had indicated that the department has met with Public Works, and there has been now a clear terms of reference of what does that mean. It might be an extension of ASIDI and SAFE, or it might be a new program in its entirety. So I just wanted to check, is there now clarity on what this new purpose vehicle will actually look like? Since you're saying that ASIDI and SAFE are coming to a close, whether it's going to be an extension of these programs, or it's going to be a new program in its entirety. Has it been budgeted for? What is it exactly looking at? Because I know, for example, ASIDI had schools that were part of the list that were later removed and reverted back to provinces. For example, Ititabani in Eastern Cape and Yugi was a prime example that was presented in the committee over the previous financial year. So I just wanted to check, whether there is a budget allocation to this new purpose vehicle. Is going to be extension of SAFE and ASIDI, and if not, what exactly is happening regarding that? Because there's been an announcement on that, and we need to know, considering the fact that now we've even got a problem that's been exacerbated by the floods in KZN beyond the riots in the previous year. Then the second thing is that the backlog of SAFE is over 1,500. And it seems to be slower than what ASIDI is trying to achieve. And in full view of it, that is a big challenge, considering that during COVID we had to hire out or use funds to hire out mobile toilets for these schools. And I just wanted to check, what is the delay of having over 1,500 backlog of the SAFE program, and whether there's an acceleration strategy to ensure that backlog is kind of removed? Because the SAFE program was targeted to be completed by March 2021. where there would have been a complete eradication of pit toilets. And with the slow pace of it happening now, obviously it's got implications, and I think we all know what the implications are, considering that these rural parts of the country are mostly affected by this, and rural schools. And we've got several deaths that have happened and so on. And even a teacher sending down a child to go and fetch a cell phone in these pit toilets. So is there an acceleration strategy regarding that? And then the third last question, Chair, is that we had posed a question regarding implementing agents and consequence management, and the department simply responded and said, noted, they'll look at the consequence management of that. But I think it's high time that we do a review with these implementing agents, DBSA and various implementing agents that we have, that one sometimes build substandard infrastructure like we've seen in Mount Fletcher Special School, where we visited, Chair, as a committee, where we got their toilets are built, but they're not working. Even till today, those toilets are not working, Chair. And these were done by DBSA, and we were told that they're going to be looked at and nothing has been done. And then secondly, you still find implementing agents like we've seen in Vesamfondo building schools on a wetland, and for about whopping 32 million. The point I'm trying to make is that it's high time that we review the model that we use, since we're going to this new purpose vehicle that the president spoke about, of the cost in which we build schools. You find a school that is built in Stekstrom, high quality ICT infrastructure, there's high innovation, it's got labs and everything, it's built for 20 million rand. But you go to a Vesamfondo that doesn't have any of these things built for 32 million rand. And I just wanted to check whether the department does it do continuous research and study of the cost of infrastructure, that we use the model of implementing agents to build schools versus a cheaper model or way of building these schools to get value for money that we actually put into this infrastructure, so that we can make sure that when we do build these schools, they actually have facilities that are functional, toilets that are working, and people are actually held accountable. So is the implementing agent process the only form or way in which the department does infrastructure, and does it see it as the most quality, cheapest way to do it? Or is there no research that has been done regarding that? And then on slide 17, these targets that were set there, were they set based on the needs or just on the budget available? And I might have a follow-up question on that. And then the last point, Chair, I think Honorable Dr. Tembekwa touched the issue of maintenance. I'll wait for that response, but I had my own question on that. But the last point I want to make, Chair, is that, we've got a challenge of overcrowding in classrooms that requires some sense of innovation. I think this is where I want to supplement the point of that we've got a bill reviewing the South African Schools Act and the Employment of Educators Act. And it's got a legal lacuna, meaning it's got a gap of online and blended learning approach that could alleviate the pressure of children having to rush to the classroom. And now that the spectrum has been put out as well for bidding, is an opportunity to make sure that the schools that don't have access to network actually have access to network, so that they can benefit in the ICT infrastructure, Wi-Fi, connectivity, and so on. And I think it's something that the department needs to look at in accompanying the approach of infrastructure, because building new schools every year, some schools being abandoned. I know a school in my own village, in Mahlobeni, where children actually don't attend the school. They'd rather prefer to go to town, but that school has been newly built through the ASIDI program. And also look at the approach of how do we do online and blended learning and take advantage of that, so that we try and alleviate the financial pressure of building new schools that sometimes go and not be used and become white elephants. And this is something that I think the department needs to comment on whether that's been an approach that has been accompanied by the infrastructure department or the department in its entirety, to try and see, whether we can be able to move towards that approach to try and supplement what we're already doing in terms of building. And I think that's going to help us quite a lot, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Okay. No, thank you very much, to the members that have participated in the questioning of the department and Kagiso Trust. There are just a few issues that I would raise myself from the department first. Dr. van der Westhuizen, do you think anytime soon we are going to get to a period where we say that we are able to deliver our infrastructure at a pace that at least is satisfactory, where we are not slow, where we are able to respond? And if we think that we can do that, we can be able to change the pace, how soon do we think we can do that as the department? And in your view, as you are leading this infrastructure in the department, the strategies that are being used to deliver on infrastructure, will you be able to say that they are also satisfactory? They are going to make us, because we know that if the department can be able to overcome its infrastructure challenges, actually this department will be able to get clean audits, and it can be able to be a shining department in the country. But also, what is causing the delay in meeting the ASIDI targets? Could it be that the allocations fall short of the set targets, or that the department has improved on its spending patterns? Now, coming to Kagiso Trust, I must say that one is commending the work that you are doing, particularly in the Free State province. And I'm sitting here, I'm asking myself, if you are having more than 30 years functioning, why are you only claiming one province where you are able to assist and be able to bring the result that you are saying that you are able to bring in the Free State? And of course, I must say that it is evident, we can't run away from it, that the districts in Free State are doing very well. And at what stage do you think that you'll be able to move to other provinces? Partly, Honorable Nodara covered me when he dealt with the issues of expertise that you think you are bringing, that you would think they do assist in the Department of Basic Education. And I'm raising this question because I want to be particular in raising the issue of mathematics and physical science. When we were on oversight this year in the Northern Cape, we have realized and even came to a conclusion that our learners are running away from the class of mathematics and physical science. Now, if you're having these resources and you are able to assist learners to improve academically, there are areas in our views that are expertise where our learners currently, they are running away. They wouldn't want to be in those classes. Do you think perhaps you can go that far and be able to identify that and assist in those areas? When you go to provinces like you are doing in Free State, Is there any difficulties from your side to move to other provinces? Or for you to work with DBE in provinces? Is there anything that you think needs to be done to assist so that you can be able to form these collaborations with provinces? I mean, look, we of course, Tina, we are only 3 years in this committee and in this 6th administration. But of course, if you've got this type of experience in dealing with education sectors, surely you should be able to know now how do you enter in provinces and be able to assist the sector to do well in delivering better education in other provinces. So I think from my side, those are the things that I'm raising from both the department and the trust. I think we do not have hands anymore from members. And in the absence of those hands, then I am going to allow, I think, Kagiso Trust to respond first, and then we are going to allow the department to follow. We are just allowing Kagiso Trust to speak first because really we are meeting them for the first time. So let's treat our visitors well. I hope the department understands. Over to you, Kagiso.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chairperson. And may I request that the committee indulges us that our response will be in twofold. I will respond, but if the chair allows me, I will then invite my colleagues to fill the gaps in case I've missed on responding to a specific issue or specific issues that the committee have raised. We are humbled, I think, by the acknowledgement that has been expressed by some of the members on the work that we do. As mentioned, we are an NGO and we regard ourselves as an intervention. So we are not government. We work with government. There are instances where we received a positive reception from government and government was willing to collaborate and we embraced that collaboration. One of the questions was asked to say, who are the 5 provinces where you worked? We started in Limpopo in November. I mentioned in my presentation that the program we implement is embedded on collaboration. So we don't have a sack full of money that we bring to schools. We have limited resources. And in that regard, that we appreciate that the collaboration means government also putting money into the program. We went to KZN, Mzingati area. We implemented in the district in 20 high schools. We requested government to come to the party. Government was reluctant. We went to the Eastern Cape, identified a poor performing district. My colleagues will help me with the name, I'm just forgetting the name. The most poorest district in the Eastern Cape. Government did not come to the party. We did what we could do and we proceeded to Mpumalanga, did the same thing. It is only in the Free State that we were embraced by the department who was willing to put in their money into the collaboration. I mentioned in my presentation that part of the challenge is the PFMA, which is saying that if you have to work with government, you need to go through an open tendering process, which we respect that. I think the Free State, we went, because you see, the difference, Chairperson, is that we bring money. We're not a service provider who is bringing in expertise. We also bring our own money. I think the modalities within the PFMA present challenges in that regard. What happens when, as an NGO, you bring in money? How are you secured? I think there was an honorable member who asked about whether do we have an MOU with the department. We do have access to the Minister of Basic Education. He knows, I mean, she knows about our program, and advised us that we should rather work with provinces. And that's why in my presentation, I mentioned that we are seeking the support of the department to help us unlock the relationships with provinces. And whether we need to sign an MOU with national, the committee must advise us to say, yes, sign an agreement with national, then your model will be implemented nationally, and then we can go for that approach. But at the moment, such does not exist. I think there are constraints, as I mentioned, part of it is the PFMA constraint. So if there is a mechanism that can be identified through the committee that can be done, we want to scale, because we think that we have a solution that can be implemented nationally. Unfortunately, some of the provinces did not come to the party because of apparently they had challenges on how they can partner. Now, in Limpopo, we have partnered with the department through the Education Trust. Now, members would understand that the Education Trust is an entity established by the Department of Education to deal with relations that are entailing collaboration with the private sector or with civil society. So that's where we have located but not all provinces have education trusts, and that's the reality. So as we speak, we have tested a model. We think it is replicable. It can be adapted in various provinces depending on the need. But we need to have a vehicle, and that's what we're seeking to say, what is a vehicle suitable? We have the Free State experience, we have the Limpopo experience. So what are the modalities that can be proposed that can then run on that basis? If that part can be resolved, then we should be able to run nationally. The difference, and I think I'm presenting this difference because it's quite significant. We are an NGO which wants to partner with government, bringing our own resources. So we just need to resolve what should those modalities entail. And then we can, obviously we work with other partners. We do work with the mine in Limpopo to implement a similar program. One of the advantages that I can share with the colleagues before my colleagues come in is that we have ventured into the infrastructure development space. And recently we built a school in Kroonstad, funded by De Beers for 21 million, fully functional, with all equipment, grade R, nutrition center, computers. And we know that that infrastructure could have been priced different. But because of we're not caught in this red tape, which sometimes undermines the quality and the process, we are able to then render infrastructure at a cheaper price. So there was a question about our capability. Obviously, as an NGO, as a small entity with limited resources, by the way, I should not create this impression that we are moneyed and have all the resources. We don't. So we work with partnership collaborations, strategic organizations that we bring on board to implement programs. So on that basis, we are able to come to the party. The delivery of basic education is the competence of the Department of Education, of Basic Education. We can only come in to support the process. We don't want to take it over. So that's why even in where we're implementing, we are constrained because we cannot, for example, insist that certain things should be done because we're not department. So our collaboration with the department is fundamental. And it is that collaboration that is enabling us to change the circumstances in the schools, collaborate with communities, and use our own expertise to change the circumstances and the experiences of our children. So what lies at the center, the heartbeat of our program, is to say, how do we help department? And I want to underline this. How do we help the Department of Basic Education to improve the quality of education? So it's not us rolling out a national program because we don't have the capability. We don't have the capacity. So it is in partnership with the department. So that's why we were saying, how can the committee help us to unlock those constraints that we're facing so that we can use the legitimacy of our success to access those provinces that are appropriate for me. We are aware of them, and we can, as at tomorrow, start those engagements. But department has been reluctant. I mean, someone mentions the Northern Cape. We spoke to the Northern Cape, and they were just at the verge of starting implementation. But department apparently had its own internal challenges, and we appreciate that. I mean, we're not necessarily suggesting that we should be treated different. All we're saying is that here we are, willing and capable, and have a model that we have designed over a period of time, and we want to share with the department, and let's look at modalities suitable. Let me stop there, Chairperson, and maybe check with my colleagues if, with your permission, of course, that they can maybe address other questions that I might not have addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Themba. I'll ask Caesar to respond to the issue of maths and science, and I think another area around systemic teachers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mankodi. Thank you, Mankodi. And I will talk to the issue of mathematics and physical science. I am talking to that because as we're doing curriculum development, we are not intervening in all the subjects in the curriculum. When it comes to secondary schools, specifically for the question that is asked on mathematics, including the intermediate, the senior phase, and the foundation phase, we are biased to mathematics. We are also biased to physical science. Our discovery is that currently mathematics teachers, they don't help learners to engage with the mathematical ideas, with the meanings, the conventions, including the practices that are there in mathematics. But instead, they teach recipes to learners. Why are they doing that? They are doing that through making examples. You'll find that the teacher focuses on looking into previous question papers rather than focusing on a concept so that the learner can understand the concept and be able to apply it in any question that is given. So for us, it is more important as we support teachers who are teacher-centric. We are supporting teachers so that they are understanding the concepts, but not only for themselves, they are helping learners to understand the concept and be able to respond either to questions, not only a particular question just to pass examinations as a tick box, but also for making sure those that it's part of a concept learned, not for now, but for lifelong learning. And we also embed our support on the lead teacher concept, because these are the teachers that, as we work with schools, are the teachers that they move to a level of proficiency in their delivery of curriculum. Therefore, they become part of the system. In fact, they become a second tier to the subject advisors, because they are able to do the support that subject advisors should be doing within the school. We have put in initiatives to encourage and ignite the love of mathematics. And we're just load shaded, but we'll be fine. So just igniting the love of mathematics. We've got initiatives that we have put in. We have done what we call a maths campaign, a maths for all. We have done a maths competitions in the Free State, where we've partnered with ESCOM Foundation to make sure that we ignite the mathematics. We have put in what we call mathematics dates and physical science dates, but we've got these ongoing competitions within the school and within the clusters that we're working at.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, maybe the last comment from my side is around the issue of the board. I think it's an important point. Currently, the board is seized with recruiting the women on the board. We did have some, but young women are also mobile. So the exits are being replaced with other women. But more important, I think the board is very clear that the journey that organizations like ourselves are taking requires people with a developmental understanding, people that want to collaborate with government, with other stakeholders. So they are very deliberate to say, while some of them are getting older, they want to also participate in looking for like-minded young people. And I'm pleased that very soon, actually by next quarter, we will be joined by another young CA who is also a lecturer in KZN. We try that the board should be representatives of provinces as well, because the programs also even outside education do cover other provinces. So definitely, I think it's a good, important question to address the issue of representativity, and that's where the board is going. Thank you, Chair. I think we have covered all the questions, unless if there are further questions, we can be guided. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much. DPE?
Thank you, Chair. I will try to be very brief. I think there were some excellent questions posed by the honourable members and really engaging on the wider challenges around infrastructure. And Chair, if you will permit me, I think it may be more appropriate to respond to some of these questions in writing rather than to give quick comments here. So I'll just give an overview. If we talk about the issue about the incentive to teachers to improve outcomes, I really recommend that we get the education people to respond. Mr. Mara will deal with that and provide a written response. Similarly, on the issue of the masks, it is a very pertinent question. You can imagine that we also had several inquiries about that, and we will get the experts to respond on that. When we talk about the infrastructure specific issues, I think the first thing we can just touch on is what is the role of the national department versus the roles of the provincial departments. In essence, the responsibility for infrastructure lies with the province. They must identify the need and they should drive the programs to address those needs. And our role should be focused on understanding why they have challenges instead of just taking it over, trying to understand the root cause and go and address the root cause. And that is the essence of the drive of National Treasury as well, to say that the funding is essentially allocated to the province. The province must drive it, they must plan, and they must implement. Now, so we want to move back to that key role of what we are supposed to do. And in that, we have an obligation to provide support. Now, that support is also in the form of systems. And then that's why we talked about a database of all the infrastructure, like the NIMS system, and a program management system that can really assist to have a transparent management for all of that. And we are putting a lot of initiatives in place at the moment, a lot of discussions with Treasury around that, to get that as a national system that we all use the same. It makes it much more transparent, consistency of reporting as well. The second thing I just want to mention there, that if those things then really go wrong, we must have a mechanism to intervene. And part of the discussion that we are currently having with also our minister and with Treasury is, what do we do if there's really a crisis and we need to intervene? Our only mechanism at the moment is the school's backlog grant. If that falls away, we are basically stuck. So that's part of the current discussion. So it's a very relevant question that was asked there. The second component I just want to mention is that the schools are located in municipal areas. And we have serious challenges in some of these areas where municipalities are really battling to do what they are mandated to do. I think Honorable Nodaya mentioned issues of schools located in wetlands and stuff like that. And that is part of the challenge. I mean, the town planning is done by the municipality. The zoning is done by the municipality. The allocation of education stands and business and commercial, whatever, is done by the municipality. If we go back to the floods that we recently experienced in KZN, it was really disturbing when you start to analyze where did the damage occur. The damage occurs simply in the floodlines. It is absolutely predictable that it will occur there. And if you then look at the aerial photographs, and we then got the 100-year floodlines from the eThekwini Metro, and you superimpose that on something like Google Earth and stuff like that, you are shocked to see the level of development that was allowed inside the floodlines. So that's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed in terms of getting the root cause sorted out. To simply go and rebuild the school inside the same floodline would be the wrong answer. The slogan that started to develop in the office and in the ministry is, we must build better. We can't just repeat the same mistake. Whatever we do must be better. So that is a very important component, is how do we engage with local government around this issue of planning. If we talk about the value for money, and there were a lot of comments about value for money, and this is a very important issue. We go out on tender for every project. Every project that we put out is an open tender. So there are market forces out there that determine the price. So we are in general working through implementing agents, and it is unfortunately true that the performance of the implementing agents varies a lot. So there's not a one size fits all, and there's not a one answer to say, yes, implementing agents are terrible to use or they are excellent to use. It depends a lot. It depends a lot on which implementing agent, but it also depends even on the team within the implementing agent that you're working with. So we are constantly reviewing that. And there were comments about consequence management. There are several implementing agents that we utilized on some of these programs on ASIDI and SAFE, and their contracts were terminated and the jobs were simply taken away from them. So there were serious consequences on some of those. So they just get no jobs any further. If we talk about the issue of the school of the future and what is really required, we believe that in essence, education is driven by education experts. Infrastructure is simply providing the platform for that to happen. So any discussion about e-learning, some other models of how do we engage between learners and educators, that initiative comes from the education experts and not from the infrastructure experts. We will respond to that. And we are working with them. So that takes you to the comments of the SONA, where it was announced that there are some innovative approaches that will be piloted. So it's important to note that this is not the new thing. This is a pilot. That pilot will be rolled out at the moment in 2 provinces. What was indicated was Eastern Cape and Northern Cape. That initiative is driven by the Office of the Presidency, and they have established a task team with other departments involved in that task team. So we are also a member of the task team, but like I said, the detail of that is driven through the Presidency. One of the elements of their approach deals with funding, on how they see the funding working, and I think we will see how they unveil or unpack their funding model in the near future. I think the other issue was around progress. And whether we can speed up. It is true, to do 1,500 schools in a year is a massive task. If I go back to just the records of ASIDI, when ASIDI started on the sanitation side, they typically did about 50 to 100 schools a year. Now, we've luckily learned some lessons from there, and that enabled us to ramp up that progress to like 500 and 700. And then last year we achieved over 1,000 per year. So we've learned. And we've eliminated some of the inefficiencies. There was a question about budgets. Budget is allocated in terms of the Division of Revenue Act. So that typically is allocated over a multi-year period. So you start with a budget, and then you can work back to say, okay, if that is the budget, how much can we do with that budget? And then there's a bit of engagement between the implementing department and Treasury to say, but during the adjustment period, can we have a little bit more, a little bit whatever? So it is a bit of both, but it is definitely a very important constraint to take cognizance of. I think that sort of addressed most of the issues except the maintenance issue. There was a question of, we've now built 300 odd new schools, but some of them are already looking like old schools. Chair, I think the answer on my car and your car and my house and your house and the school is exactly the same. If you don't maintain it, it's going to fall apart. And that is one of the reasons why, in terms of the mitigation, we enforce this. We purposefully changed the grant framework for the EIG. Previously, they had values of 20% and 30%. And then this year, when we started that discussion, I mean, the DG just came out strong and said, forget it, the answer is 60. And that is what got printed in and published in the in the framework for the grant. So 60% of the grant must be allocated to infrastructure, because it is just the wrong thing to build new things while your old things are falling apart. So I think, Chair, I would like to ask if I can stop there and offer to draft some written response to this, and then through Mr. Mara's office, we will submit that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Supervisor Stephen. Of course, we are going then to wait for you to respond in writing, with those you're going to respond in writing with. But I must say that we are thanking Kagiso Trust for the responses, but also coming to ourselves to just share with us your role as an NGO that works with the sector, and your successes that you have heard for the past many years that you have, from when you have been formed. Probably something that we are going to discuss as the committee, but one would have to say that we would have to just have our own chat with the department with issues of how Kagiso Trust can move down to other provinces that are poor, but provinces that needs assistance. How can we have an MOU that will be able to assist our provinces so that we can have better results, but also we can have a better performance from our learners. I think that is something all of us that we can welcome. But I think, like I'm saying, that probably it's something that we need to have with the. It's something that we have to discuss with the department to find out what if. I mean, they of course the department should know that there's Kagiso Trust and is doing well in the Free State. Why can't the same things that they are doing in the Free State be shared with other provinces? With that as it may, I think I need to thank everybody for being part of the meeting with us. And I must say, Doc, Van der Stays, and we do see, and we need to commend the department for the improvement on their infrastructure. Not that we are not noticing the difference and the work that you are doing, but I think for us the issue is the pace, and you know, it's like we would want to see things changing in our lifetime, whilst we are still we are still here. But of course, we know that other things are some things that are beyond control. So on that note, then, let's thank everybody, and I must say again, thank you for first understanding that we needed to change our meetings left, right, and center. And thank you for availing yourselves. It's after hours. I mean, most of you are family members. You need to be with your families, but you decided to be part of this meeting. We are really thankful that you are understanding that it's something also beyond our control, that we had to have this meeting during these hours at night. Like I'm saying, that probably for the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's gonna be the situation. So the department, which of course we are working with every week, they will have to understand if we are calling a meeting again at 6 o'clock, that it's because of the budget process that is taking on in Parliament. So thank you very much. We are going to allow now both Kagiso Trust and DBE to leave us in the meeting, though I'm not sure we are going to be able to adopt the minutes. Mr. Brown is cut off by electricity.
Chairperson, I'm back, Chairperson. I've been back
okay.
for a while. I'll flag the minutes in a minute.
No, then it's fine. Thank you very much, Kagiso Trust and the department.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honourable members, and good night.
Thank you, Chair and members.
Are they all gone? At least we still have members in the meeting. Let's see the minutes of the 3rd of May, 9:30 through visual. We had an engagement on the petition of Honorable Sukars. Page 1 is the attendance, and page 2. Of the officials of both the department and Western Cape. And then we have opened the meeting, and the agenda was adopted by Honorable Sukars and seconded by Honorable Litsia. And then we handed over to Honorable Sukars, who had the petition on the closure of Siekuichat Primary School. So she was the petitioner on that day. And then we received a presentation from the department, which was done by Mr. Janchis. And then there were community members that also participated in the meeting. They were led by Pastor Kutsia. And to those our own observations and questions to the Department of Education in the Western Cape. And then they have responded together with Honorable Sukars. And then we have resolved that we will arrange a meeting with the department so that they can present to us the draft rural education policy, including the regulation on school closure measures, and that it was important that the committee understood the policy and its implications so as to make informed decisions and possible recommendations pertaining the petition. So that's how we have closed that meeting, that we need to have a briefing on the rural education policy. And then we have considered and adopted the minutes of the 19th of April. And then on matters arising, we have then discussed the issue of the oversight in Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, where members are aware that we had to cancel because then there was an announcement by the president of appointing an ad hoc committee that is going to deal with the floods of KZN Eastern Cape, and then it's gonna report back to Parliament. So it's an ad hoc committee that will deal with schools as well. So then there was no need for us to proceed with our oversight. And then on the issue of study tour, I think our secretariat is still working on that. When they are done, they're going to come and present to us. On Bella Bill, like we have agreed that we're gonna go for public comment, open that from the 15th of May till the 15th of June. I think they are ready now, the secretariat, and the adverts will be out from the 15th of May, which is this coming weekend. And then we adjourned the meeting at 10:20. Any corrections? In the absence of corrections, can we then adopt the minutes?
Chairperson.
Principal.
My invisible hand is up. I rise to move that we adopt this minutes as a true record of what transpired the last time we met. Thank you.
Principal, any seconder?
Then I second the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you very much. I think it's Honorable Yabone. Thank you very much on this. Siyabonga, I think we are then at the end of our meeting. Thank you very much, honorable members. Thank you very much for your patience as well. Like we have said that we have explained to the department and these people of Kagiso Trust that other things were really beyond our control. We think we are going to have our plenary, what do you call these things? Mini plenaries. We're going to have it next week sometime.
Yeah, next week, Thursday, Chair.
Oh, yeah, it's next week, Thursday.
Thank you, ma. And a good night.
Thank you.
You're so quiet. I'm moving you. Don't second. Are we having some crossroads? No, no. Thank you and good night.
Also, Honorable Letsie must go and help the kids with their homework now.
Lydia Saint Travel is living in the Bunduland of the Eastern East Rand.
Oh. Good night.
Bye-bye.